It is time for Guest of the Day, guys. We mentioned off the top the guys from MATCHNow joining us today. If you trade the Canadian markets or have any kind of interest in the Canadian markets, great product, MATCHNow, as far as order types. We'll get into some of their midpoint orders and at the touch orders. But without further ado, let's introduce to my left Steve Fleming and Vince Poil from MATCHNow. Guys, how are you today? Good to see you.
Yeah, great.
Very good. Very well.
Thanks for having us on the show. It's exciting.
It's been a while. Steve's obviously been on the show before, but going back to another iteration of the show where it didn't look as fancy as it does today. So
yeah, you guys got the upgrade.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us once again. Let's lots to cover here, guys, as far as MATCHNow goes. So let's jump right into MATCHNow. We'll talk about structure, routing practices, things like that. We have some visuals, I think, ready to go here from Nikki's screen, if we can there, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, great. Thanks. In case you guys don't get enough PowerPoint slides in your life, we put together a little one here for you. For those of you that don't know, MATCHNow is Canada's leading dark pool. We do not have lit quotes. All of our trades occur in the dark. The only way to know if there's a party happening is that you need to show up and send us orders. So keep that in mind. You're not going to see quotes on the board. I want to quickly cover our key attributes, the 4 pillars of MATCHNow. It's really our reason for being. The first is meaningful price improvement for active flow. So anybody looking across spread in Canada, if you are not pinging MATCHNow, you are doing yourselves a disservice, because there is a lot of spread to be captured off of a midpoint or a minimum price improvement fill. That being said, I'm going to say about 95 to 99% of the traditional retail active accounts in Canada will ping MATCHNow first, looking for price improvement, and then they will go off into the lit markets to get their fill. So the mandate for best execution amongst a lot of these retail shops is to get price improvement. So the best way for you to kind of move up that ladder and skip the lit queues is to be posted in MATCHNow to interact with that active retail flow. The second pillar of our business is to protect the passive side of the order. This is all about us being a dark pool. You guys can rest on us in size, anonymously, without showing your hand to the market, and be able to get your fill on a prorated basis. And that bleeds into our third pillar, which is size discovery. We like to say that whales live within our pool. We are a prorated marketplace. We are the only marketplace in Canada that is prorated, and this is critical to you getting a fill on us. So always key to oversize or upsize your orders, because when we allocate an active order to a passive order, we award for size, not speed. And that's a really nice little advantage that you guys have in terms of getting to top a queue. You're always going to get your fill because it's a prorated allocation.
Yeah, great stuff. Might be a good time to just take a little bit of a step back. Some of the people watching might not be as familiar with MATCHNow as obviously we are here. Maybe we can touch a little bit on order types and order products that you offer and how they work. How we can submit the orders and how they are filled.
Yeah, sure. I'll throw that over to Vince.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So no problem. So there's effectively three levels of price improvement in MATCHNow. So you've got your midpoint price improvement, your minimum price improvement, or MPI. That's for your wider spread stocks, where you can just take one tick inside the spread. And then you've got your at the touch, which is trading at the quote for larger orders. That's 51 board lots or more, or $100,000. So the passive guys send day orders into our pool at one of those 3 levels. They'll provide liquidity at mid, at MPI, or at the touch. The active orders, the IOCs, come in and they drill down through those levels, but they do so in priority order. Midpoint will always trade first. You'll always get maximum price improvement first with your active order. Second, it will trade with MPI. And third, it will try and trade at the touch with the remainder of that liquidity. So those large active orders will always benefit from maximum price improvement, but also maximum fill size as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. So a little bit of background, guys. So if you aren't familiar with using MATCHNow or how it works, always good to get that information before we go any further. But we'll continue along the list here. Dark trading in Canada obviously has developed over the past few years and continues to evolve. How does MATCHNow fit into that?
Yeah, for sure. So we have some detailed market structure slides and some stats, if we can maybe get them on the screen just for my own reference. You know, dark trading in Canada, we've kind of hit the high water mark. We're doing about overall dark trading that includes on exchange, you know, gray order types and pure dark, which is going to be ourselves. You know, that accounts for about 12% of market share within Canada. If we want to look at the pure dark space, we're doing about 7% of the market overall. And you can kind of see the breakdown. The nice thing about trading dark in Canada is that it's highly, highly concentrated volume on MATCHNow. I mean, until CXD showed up to the show, we were really the only play in town. And even with competition coming in, we're still taking down about 85% market share on the dark landscape. In terms of continuous market share, because this is what people care about, especially you know, your traders, is how do I get that trade? How do I get access to that trade? What matters most is continuous market share, X blocks, X crosses, and you know, we're about at 8 to 9% market share if we're going to look at X blocks, X crosses. So definitely need to be within your routing logic on your radar in terms of where you need to be posting to get the other side of the trade. So the slide we're looking at right now, this is what Vince kind of covered here in terms of how you use us. So, you know, very briefly, 2 order destinations, your active order type. This is your IOC seeking price improvement. You know, don't cross spread, get midpoint. Versus our passive order destination. This is supplying liquidity to the pool, your resting day orders. And again, you have 3 pricing levels you can choose from: the midpoint, the minimum price improvement, and then at the quote. Very briefly, minimum price improvement is effective when the spread is 3 cents or wider. So think about, you know, your prefs, your debentures, high price, widespread securities, ETFs. We've got some nice studies that are going to be coming up showing you, you know, how you can trade MPI on those. And again, that's going to capture about 99% of the spread. You know, you only have to give up a penny worth of price improvement to get your MPI fill, versus a midpoint, which is going to be, you know, the midpoint of the spread.
Great stuff. Yeah, a little bit of rule changes that have come into effect recently that you guys wanted to mention as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the dark landscape has evolved over time. You know, we do a tremendous amount of volume at the quote. It tends to be on lower price securities. I'm going to say like $5 and below, and we've garnered a tremendous amount of market share. Like on CSC and venture names, I think we're doing close to 10-11% market share on those names. And you know, this has led to you know, great success for trading at the quote on us. So much so that the regulators have stepped in and they want to, you know, bring more volume into the lit venues. So this is the one thing that's facing the dark trading landscape going forward in 2020. The current rules state that you can trade at the quote if the order is 51 board lots or $100,000 Canadian. What the new rule change is going to be is 51 board lots and $30,000 Canadian. So
or $100,000.
Or $100,000 nominal. So what this matters to you guys is anybody that's running an at the touch trading strategy on MATCHNow. February 2020, these rules are going to be changed. You don't have to change your routing behavior necessarily. Just be aware that they're going to change, and you might want to, instead of sitting at the quote, you might want to offer up and offer mid. Any kind of price improvement level, this rule does not touch. It's only at the quote trading. So in order to get your other side of the trade, you might want to offer up a midpoint and interact with that active flow.
So the board lot itself, obviously not changing the size, 5,100 board lots, but the notional value, the key number there.
Yeah, the key is the 51 board lots and $30,000.
Right.
That is going to be deemed a large size in the dark, and it will allow you to trade at the quote.
Yeah, so you mentioned $5 and under kind of thing, bringing in a little bit more, you know, price variation as far as that the quote goes. Good to know. Very important point. Functionality-wise, we touched on it a little bit, but we'll talk a little bit about MATCHNow as far as functionality, how things are matched, things like that.
Yeah, sure. So effectively, there's 2 types of trades happening during the day. You've got what we talked about before, the inbound IOC orders interact with standing liquidity. That's event-based. That's going off all the time as messages come and go. We also have a separate call auction. Now that's running, that's randomized between 1 and 3 seconds throughout the day. And what it does, it gathers up any standing liquidity, any 2 passive orders that sit and there's standing liquidity that will match. It will do so in that random 1 to 3 second period. That enables people to just sit there all day and have, you know, as other passive orders come in, it gives them a chance to interact with other passive suppliers at a much larger size than they might do if they were taking out the IOC orders coming in.
Fantastic. Good to know. Let's move on to some trading opportunities. I mean, you mentioned the kind of sub $5 level, but what are some of the other areas that we're seeing the most flow going through?
Yeah, for sure. So we've got some interesting stats. I refer to it as like our composite study. So what we've done is taken all of the names that are within the composite, and we're going to give you a breakdown as to what our market share is on those names and how those names get priced. If possible, could we get the slide displayed?
Let's get that visual once again, guys, please. Thank you.
There's a couple interesting things going on here. Thank you. So the bar graph is denoting what our market share is on these names over time. You can see that every composite name is listed below. We then do a stacked bar graph showing you the pricing distribution of these names. So for example, if you look at Bombardier, quite a lot of pink, which means that it trades at the quote. Quite a lot of green as well.
That's the first bar there.
The first bar, that's right. Yeah, quite a lot of green, which means that it trades at midpoint. And we do oversized market share on that. We're about 8-9% on a name like Bombardier. Reason for that being Bombardier gets really jammed up on the lit queues. Tough to get the top of queue on that name. And whenever we see that happen, we see volume migrate into MATCHNow because of our prorated allocation methodology. This is especially true if there's ever a risk arbitrage opportunity that turns on. Let's say that somebody gets bought out. You know, the price is set in the lit venues. Queues get jammed up. People can't get the top of queue, so they come into a prorated marketplace to get their fill. Alternatively, you look at a name like Constellation Software, CSU, which is down, down near the end. It's a high-price, widespread name, totally different trading profile than Bombardier, but people hate crossing spread on CSU. We have an oversized market share, sometimes up to 15% market share on a name like that, because people want their price improvement. So we see a lot of CSU going off at minimum price improvement. You know, it can be a dollar spread sometimes. You offer up 1 penny of price improvement into the pool, you're going to get first look at that active flow as it's coming into the marketplace. So yeah, just this is kind of like a gauge as to how you need to price your things on the composite names. If you want to trade composite names at the quote, it will work on some names, kind of the lower price names, and not on others. Now, if we move forward a few slides, I'll juxtapose that with our minimum price improvement slide. Which has a very different profile, right? Like these are different profile stocks. They're a little more liquid. They have wider spreads. And here you can see where you can run a really successful minimum price improvement strategy on these names. So again, you just have to give up 1 tick of price improvement passively. You jump the queue in the lit marketplace and you interact with all that active flow coming into the market. And I mean, on some of these names, we have monster market share, like 20-30% on some of these names in some cases.
Obviously, I saw Afria up there. Obviously, cannabis is a hot topic here in Canada and moving around all the time. That's good to see as far as that sector goes, I'm sure.
Yeah. So that's actually an interesting point you bring up. As an interesting story, where you guys and your organization sits in the Canadian marketplace, because for the longest time, like institutions weren't trading cannabis names. It was just like straight up not within their profile. But we have like this active retail community in Canada that wants to trade these names. So you've kind of been the de facto market maker on a lot of these cannabis names in Canada. We're a very institutional friendly shop. I mean, about half of our volume is institutions, and they weren't posting passively on us for the longest time because they just weren't trading these names. And I mean, it was such a missed opportunity, for people not posting on us, because we still have this active flow coming into us, but nobody was standing there passively. So for a while, we were a little underweight on cannabis names. I really encourage any trader that's listening right now to post on those cannabis stocks, because it has gotten a little better. The institutions are starting to play in that space a little bit more. But I mean, we have a lot of active flow that is going unfilled because we just don't have that institutional algo flow trading them. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, we mentioned off the top there, important guys to know all your options when it comes to where to send your order flow. MATCHNow, definitely a great one if you're looking at Canadian stocks. Let's go over to the desk. Sean has a question.
Hey, Stephen and Vince, thanks again for coming. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to ask you a simple question because you've gone over a lot of different slides, different notes, so on and so forth. And as you may know, it's pretty competitive sometimes for the dark space right now in Canada. If you can you just review quickly, Stephen or Vince, the number, maybe the top 2 competitive advantages that you guys have? I know we touched on it at the top, but I'm just thinking, just to review, as we've now been 10 or 15 minutes here, just for our viewers, why should they be hitting that MATCHNow key?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that opportunity. First is our prorated allocation methodology. So again, we're the only marketplace in Canada that allocates on a prorated basis. Let's say you're dealing with a time priority market, especially in the dark. You're not even going to know where you're sitting at in queue. You might be second in queue. You might be 25th in queue. Are you going to wait around for that long until that queue exhausts until you get your fill? The nice thing about us, you post on us. Just as long as your fill is worth one board lot, you're going to get something. So that would be job number one. The second one is just our oversized market share in Canada. It's really hard for competing marketplaces to claw away dark market share because there's no quote. You don't know if you're going to have any success in pinging that. So people want, in their dark pools in Canada, they want a consistent, reliable experience to, A, get my price improvement, and B, get my order filled at a cost-effective execution, and that's what MATCHNow offers.
And
I just want to actually come to Neil's screen here, if we can. Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, we're just looking at Bombardier here. And I had a quick question for you, Steve. I mean, you talked about the new regulation possibly coming in 2020 with regards to that sort of minimum lot size for the at the touch on a Bombardier here. So now instead of that 5100, because it's priced at $160, that 30,000 also minimum, that's going to mean, do I understand correctly, you'd have to trade larger size here at the minimum, probably closer to 20,000 shares? Yeah,
so it'd have to be 51 board lots and $30,000 nominal. That is going to be the regulation mandate for an of-size trade to trade at the quote. And I mean, it is upsetting for us. We fought long and hard for it. We've done the analysis, and it's going to be about $1 million increased cost to the street because just based on different fee schedules and stuff like that. But yeah, we love the product. We love the way that it worked, and obviously the clients that use MATCHNow loved it as well.
Yeah, I mean, good to know. I mean, regulations are regulations. We deal with them on a daily basis, obviously, as traders. So one of those things that will be adapted, I'm sure. Vince, you had a point.
Yeah, just to the original question, one thing. Stephen touched on it very briefly at the beginning. For those placing day orders or passive orders on our book, the retail side, the active orders, we have 95% plus of active retail orders hitting our pool first before they go to the markets. That's not to be underestimated. If there's stuff you're not putting on MATCHNow from a passive perspective, there's really no reason not to give it a try.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, great points, guys. We'll leave it at that. Steve and Vince. Oh, we have one more. Guys, we'll send it to you.
No, that's it for the questions from us, and Neil and I are just talking about that. Very important to explain that pro rata because a lot of traders uncertain of the amount of shares. And again, guys, make sure you check our tip if you're part of our network, or look up MATCHNow. There's a lot of explanation online.
Yeah, one of the things, we're just looking at Bombardier here, you have to picture, you can trade tens of thousands, if not millions of shares in a stock like this. So when you use the pro rata, that's a way to get out of large positions where it's going to take you quite some time, maybe even all day, capturing spread, and it can be worth it. You see Bombardier literally at 2-cent range. You're in at 161 or 163, and you're just trying to get out for any kind of a gross profit, and that's where pro rata can be important. If you're back of the line on a large order, you could be screwed, especially if you're a day trader here. So you jump in there, you're getting a piece if you put a large enough order on every single fill that comes through. I mean, obviously I do a lot of spread trading. You see me talking about that on the side. You got to take advantage of those types of fills because you got to be flat by the end of the day when you're day trading.
Perfect.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, guys. Once again, guys, MATCHNow, a great opportunity to, get your hands on a lot of order flow that you might not elsewhere be getting. Steve Flaming and Vince Poil from MATCHNow. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Having us. Appreciate it.
A pleasure. Come back and join us again real soon. Always good to get to know a little bit more about the different order types, guys. We'll send it back to the desk.